Greetings, traveler.
Let's take a look at all the new Quilboar and Naga reveals. Hot Air Surveyor. Blood gems played from your hand cast an extra time. So we're going to see that Rugug is removed. So this is going to be a replacement for this and have a similar function. If you have good blood gems, then this guy is great. Fearless Foodie. Choose one effect, so not a battle cry. A recurring theme we're seeing, maybe a little bit of hedging against Rylak or Bran abuse. Your blood gems now give +1/+1, or you get 4 blood gems. This seems like a really fun card. We're going to see that neither Piper nor Jazzer gets removed, so this is just pure bonus on top of your gem scaling. So it seems like a nice little addition. Early in the game, you're probably going to want to use this to increase the stats on your blood gems, and then later in the game, it can just be a neat little buy to get 4 gems in your hand, which can be a really nice combo with the card we just saw or several other things we're going to talk about. And then we also have Volcanic Visitor, which is our first new Naga. It has a spellcraft effect, which is a choose one again. You either give your minions 2 attack until next turn or 2 health until next turn. Now this is a tier 3 minion. I will say that most of the time early on, you're going to want to go for the plus attack option, which just helps you kill off your opponent's board and either take no or less damage. So it seems like a pretty damn good tempo pickup to help your board of weaker minions suddenly have enough damage to tie your opponent's board. Slysssa is back. This is a huge deal. Initially, when spells were released, Slysssa was removed, and my expectation was that she would just be too powerful because you would have a bunch of extra ways to cast spells. To my knowledge, she is not nerfed. This is still 4 friendly Nagas. It doesn't say other friendly Nagas, so she can buff herself, and every time you cast a spell means that anything counts. A blood gem, a spellcraft, a tavern spell. So very curious to see if this breaks the game with all the easy ways that you can cast spells now, or because of power creep, it's actually not a problem. Critter Wrangler is very similar to this. It usually comes in a package with a Slysssa because it's also very focused on casting spells. You can use this in combination with other cards such as Cultist. You can use this to make a big demon, or you can cast this on a Myrmidon to get a lot of value from the effect. Snail Cavalry is now a tier 1 and gains +1/+1 instead of just the health. I definitely like that it gains attack and damage. Usually when you play a snail, it's just like a 5 damage, 20 health unit or so, and now it'll scale a bit more evenly, making it much better on the board. Now the downside is when you pick up a snail on turn 1, you're not really casting a spell until turn 2, and most of the time you're going to be leveling on turn 2, so this still may as well be a tier 2 unit because you're not really casting spells early on. Zesty Shaker has been changed, and it took me a moment to spot what the change was. It's still tier 4, you still get a copy of the spell you cast on this, but it now says spell instead of spellcraft. That is a big deal. You can now combo this with every tavern spell that targets a minion. There's too many possible ways to do cool stuff with this for me to really go over everything right now. I say that we just let the player base find a way to abuse this, and then that will very likely be a thing that a lot of people are going to be forcing. Orgazoa is back. This is one of my favorite Naga cards. It's just so much value. There's fewer feelings better in this game than going for an early 6-drop, and it's an Orgazoa, because then a lot of the time the spellcraft gives you another Naga, which can give you more value, or it's just good tempo, or anything along those lines. If you get this on tier 6, it can find you more Slysssas. It's just wonderful. So super fun card to play with, lots and lots of value, and works pretty well with a Slysssa. Yes, it's not a Naga itself, but that's not necessarily a downside because it means that you don't dilute your buffs too much, and then when you are done with the value engine, you can sell the Orgazoa without having to lose a bunch of stats. And then Thorn Captain is back as well. This seems to not be altered at all. It's still a tier 1, it's a 4/2, and whenever you get a card in your hand, you get 1 extra health. This is just a neat little guy. It's just a fun card. It's a very fun golden card as well, because then it's quite a bit of tempo. On someone like Millhouse, where you can buy and sell cards very easily, it's super cool. If you have a turn where you have loads of blood gems you gain, this guy suddenly has so much health. So fun little card to play with. And then Warden of Old is back, but instead of being a death rattle, this is now a spellcraft. Now that has some implications. I would say for the most part, this is good, because Warden of Old, when it was a death rattle, was heartbreaking when it didn't die in the combat. It was so sad. You're like, no, any other minion but that one, give me my money. Now the spellcraft will give you gold, which means that you're not able to stack it. What you could do with the old Warden of Old is, well, no pun intended, you would be able to generate a bunch of coins and then just hold them for a big power spike turn. Now it's a spellcraft that says gain a gold, which means you just get a gold for that turn. It doesn't say gain a gold coin. The other thing is that you can't really use multipliers on this anymore. So before, you could do something what I call the Federal Reserve build, where you have Macaw with Reborn and maybe a Titus, and you just go coins, coins. Like every fight would be 10 coins in hand, and it would be a lot of fun. Now, since then, you know, this is a long time ago, we've had several other ways where you can add a lot of gold, like a Quartertron, etc. So this is no longer something that would be broken, but it was just a fun little thing to do. But overall, quite happy with the change to spellcraft, because I think in most cases it's just going to cause less grief when this thing doesn't die. Then we have some removed cards. You heard me talk about the buff earlier where you could buff Myrmidon and make it huge. Well, that's me just being so used to Myrmidon being in because I knew this card was out. So that's such a habit of how I used to use that card. But that doesn't mean that you can't find other good targets for your Wrangler. So no more Myrmidon, no more Falbor. We covered that in an earlier video. Rugog is out, which I alluded to earlier, but we do have a semi-replacement for that. Slither Spear and Sylvaus are out, which makes a lot of sense because you now have Atissa and Orgazoa, so that's purely just making space for 2 more tier 6 Naga cards. Silent Swimmer is out, Mini Myrmidon is out. Overall, not such huge implications for Nagas, but more for beasts, believe it or not, because one of the best things you can do in the end game is stealth your Titus with the Silent Swimmer. So losing the Silent Swimmer makes it much harder to protect your Titus. But all in all, I would say these removals are not too impactful. For our first lesser trinket, we have Hoggy Bank, which is a fun name. For 3 gold, you get Start of Combat, give your Quilboar Death Rattle, get a Blood Gem. Intuitively, this doesn't seem that great just because you need to have Quilboar. If you have any other minion that dies, you won't get the gem. Now, what I can see happening here is that you combine this with Titus, and then you will get 2 Blood Gems per Quilboar, which I can see with 5 or 4 Quilboar to get almost or a full hand of Blood Gems. If you have a good start for this, where you have Jazzer, you have Piper, then I would say you can go into this and look for Titus. If you don't have a great Quilboar start, this seems a little tricky to pick and then hope to be able to build around. Lorewalker Scroll, for 4 gold, you get the effect that when you cast a spell on a minion, it gets +2/+2. Blood Gems, Spellcraft, Tavern Spells, lots of ways to use this. I like that you can target this because it allows you to make a really good minion and then resummon it with Cultist. That's one of the most powerful things to do later in the game. I do like this. It gives you some tempo and you can choose to buff Cleaves, Divine Shields. Generally speaking, if you can choose to make any minion big, there is a way to make that a very good effect. Shaker Portrait. Get a Zesty Shaker. Your Zesty Shakers give an extra copy of the spell. Wow. Talk about something. Yeah, 6 gold. I believe it. I believe that this should cost 6 gold. It's very strong. So if you have Deep Blue on your board and you get offered this, oh my lord, is this a no-brainer? Because you are scaling so much faster. You are getting a Zesty, which is probably worth 6 gold if you're already having a Deep Blue. Like if you make me a deal and you say, oh, you know, you pay 6 gold, but you only get 1 minion, but it's a Shaker and I have a Deep Blue, I'll take that deal. That's a good deal. So on top of that, I'm getting this awesome effect where now I get an extra copy of the spell. And we've already seen earlier that Zesty has been reworked. You can target it now with a Tavern spell, and now you get an extra copy. I can already see some sadness when somebody casts a Blood Gem on their Zesty. Like, oh no, now the Blood Gem comes back, because it does say a spell. So be careful with that. That does mean anything you cast on it, the first one, will be the copy target. So don't waste it. But yeah, this just looks like so many ways to just do disgusting spell stuff. So yeah, we'll absolutely be experimenting with this. Replica Cathedral. The first spell you cast each turn gets cast twice. Early on, that's okay-ish. You do need to have the right setup for it, but generally you're getting extra value, which is almost always nice. Even something as stupid as a lasso, which is hardly the best thing you can imagine, is still kind of okay. I'm getting 2 cards immediately, which is a bit of a power spike. Later in the game, there is some awesome stuff we can do with this. With Golden Touch, we can even use something like +4/+4 to our whole board. That's still a significant power spike in the, let's say, early end game when you first get access to that card. This seems more like a neutral pick that you take if you're just in an okay spot, but you don't really want to commit anywhere and you want to leave your options open. Perfect pick for that. Great Boar Sticker. For 1 gold, you get the effect that your blood gems have 3 extra attack. Not really the most upside. It doesn't have the highest ceiling of all the stuff we see, but it has an immediate impact. While I don't think you pick this super often, I think if you're in the right position where you have played some jazzers and you have some gem generation, a lot of the time we're in the spot where like, oh my god, I just need the Piper, where is the Piper? If you're in that spot, then the Great Boar Sticker is nice because now you have some damage on your gems, and usually 3 is okay. Now, preferably, I like 5 for me is a good number. I can do 5 and 40, that's fine. Because once you start printing these huge gems and you have lots and lots of generation, only 5 damage is probably good enough because you just print such outrageous health. Now, if you only have 1 damage, it's not great. But this is a great help if you're in that particular spot. Other than that, this doesn't look that good, which we can already see. It only does cost 1 gold. What the upside is that you do have more money to spend that turn to make your board better. Rusty Trident gives all your Nagas a death rattle. They give you a random spellcraft spell. That seems fine because you are getting some tempo next turn because your minions are dying now. Yes, you might lose to someone who already has some instant benefit from their trinkets because you're not getting any instant benefit. But the next turn, you're quite a bit stronger because you have a lot of spellcraft. And where this really shines is if you later on get a Tissa or any other unit that really benefits from casting a lot of spells. And then lastly, we have Calligraphy Set. For Avenge 4, you get your blood gems give an extra 1/1 this game. Now, that looks like something you can build around. I would say out of everything offered, aside from the Zesty portrait, this looks really cool and worth to invest in because this doesn't say whenever 4 Quilboar die, so you can have token units like Undead or Beast to farm this up. So it's almost like you have your Rylak Jazzer, but it gives attack as well, and you can play any old token minions to farm this up, and then use gem minions or gem generators later to take advantage of this. So this one I do like, and you can really build around. For the greater trinkets, we start off with Lorewalker Scroll, the upgraded version. You now get +5/+5 instead of just the 2/2. So again, same arguments apply. Gems, spellcraft, stack 1 huge minion, preferably something you resummon with a cultist, but in general, just a nice addition to playing Quilboar or Naga. Blood Golem Sticker. Whenever a friendly Quilboar dies, summon a golem with stats equal to its blood gems. So this is a great addition to blood gem high roll games. Because whenever you're in that spot where you just have massive gems, something that can beat you is Scam. So we're talking Leroy's, we're talking Venomous, we're talking just in general, things that one-shot. That's no fun. So when you are having a really good blood gem game, you can now take Blood Golem Sticker, and instead of losing to Scam, you'll have 3 additional units, so it's no longer a problem. So I would say that this looks really nice if you've had a fantastic game with blood gems. Other than that, probably not quite as good as, you know, if you just have a lot of health, not that useful. If you just have a lot of damage, it gets a little bit better because I'd rather have something with, let's say, 50 damage and 1 health than 1 damage and 50 health in the late game that doesn't do anything. But preferably we just want these to be huge minions where you can continue scaling your gems and have a really good reason to. Hey, I'm buffing my Blood Golem stickers. I'm not being greedy. I need to buff my stickers. I have to keep my scaling. So super fun. Then Calligraphy Set, the upgraded version. Now you're getting +2/+2. It's a bit later, right? So you're talking turn 9 instead of turn 6. I much rather prefer to get my scaling early on, of course, because then I can take advantage of it later. I will only really take this if I have a specific board. Because you have to imagine, on turn 9, you can't really get away with running a Mana Saber or anything of the sort. So you would have to get Ghast Coiler or some similar minion, Mech Horses out to take advantage of this. So a little bit more difficult to take this, but if you're already in Quilboar, if you already have a good setup and you happen to be able to slot 1 or 2 Death Rattle minions, you can still consider this for sure. Conductor Portrait. Get a Snarling Conductor. Whenever you discard a card, play a blood gem on all your minions. Now I wonder if this works with discarding spellcrafts as well, because that could be a neat little thing where if you don't use a spellcraft, end of turn it gets discarded. So I'm not quite sure if that counts as a card, probably not. But still, this is a fun little addition where effectively instead of playing one gem, because you just hold a gem to discard, you play it on all of your minions, so it's pretty much a Chalga. So now your conductor is a Chalga, but you're also getting extra money. I think this could be a really fun thing where you have multiple conductors on your board. You're getting some tempo because you're casting gems and you're getting all that sweet money. Now it is a greater trinket, so again, it does hit a little bit later, which makes it riskier to go for these greedy cards. But because you're getting a gem cast on all your minions, if you have enough stats on your gem, you can get away with it. Glow Scale Portrait gives you a glow scale, and your first spellcraft each turn is permanent. So this seems very self-explanatory. You have glow scale, every turn you can make a permanent divine shield. That's pretty good. So starting turn 9, you're now George, and your hero power costs 0. So if you have the right board state for this, where you're happy to shield your minions, which means basically you're not running any kind of token composition, or you just don't have great minions yet, you know, it's not as good, but most of the time you're going to be pretty happy to be able to divine shield your whole board. Jar o' Gems. For 3 gold, you're getting, after 2 friendly minions attack each combat, play a blood gem on all your Quilboar. So for this one, again, that's only something we're really interested in if we've had a fantastic early game with lots of gem buffing. If not, this seems not very viable. Great board sticker. For 6 gold, you now get +4/+4 on all your blood gems. That's a lot for 6 gold at this stage, because most of the time around turn 9, which is the second turn on 10 gold, you probably already have some gem scaling ready to go. So I'm not sure if I want to pay 6 gold to get an additional 4/4 when I can probably farm quite a bit of that in a combat with a Rylak and a Jazzer or anything like that. So I suppose this is something we take if we're in a position where we have a Chalga, we tripled into a Chalga, but we don't have that many stats on our gems. I really don't think this is something you are going to be super happy about. Now it is tempo for sure, and in the right spot where you already have lots of gem generation, this can be a nice save, but I would much rather have something like the Avenge early on to generate the stats on my gems, and then later on pick a different trinket. And then lastly, we have Spite Scale Sushi Roll, which is a great nod with the name Sushi Roll, because people usually refer to that spellcraft as a sushi roll. You get a Spite Scale special, which is okay, but the reason why you're paying 6 gold is your spellcraft spells now cast twice. Generally speaking, whenever you have any of these cast twice things, it does not work with something like Atissa, because technically you're not the one casting the spell. Now I'm not exactly sure, it does say here your spellcraft spells cast twice, but most of the time it doesn't work. So same thing with Azurite. If you're casting spells twice, it's more like the game casts the second one, so you're not actually getting the value. So we'll have to double check that, but I'm going to assume that this won't make your Atissa insane. But what this really works with is Deep Blue, of course. If you have Deep Blue and you're getting double Deep Blue cast, that is so much value and tempo, because when the Deep Blue gets cast an additional time, it does scale. Right, so very nice. For now, I'm going to just treat this as a Deep Blue trinket, but a really good one. That's all the Naga and Quilboar stuff. What do you guys think are going to be the most powerful combos? Let me know in the comments, and stay tuned tomorrow for the new pirate stuff.